Hey everybody, David Iseminger here from IronWeave, and today we're going to talk about IronWeave payment validation. So in IronWeave, there is no central chain to which all transactions or interactions must reconcile. There's an unlimited number of independent interacting chains that can interact with whomever they choose. So since there is no single monolithic chain to which all things must reconcile, the method that we have created of ensuring that no double spend can happen is novel, and it pushes that responsibility out onto each individual paying chain. And here's how it works. So if you have an independent chain that has some value in it, whatever sort of token it has, and you want to pay that to someone, you want to make this value exchange, when you initiate a transaction, that particular chain is locked until that payment is validated and complete, or the payment is rejected. So the validator, the responsibility of the validator in this case is only to ensure that there is enough available um, digital value for this particular transaction. So if you're trying to send 20 ETH to somebody, the validator only has to ensure that your chain has 20 ETH, and it will only look back at each block and until it finds a value of at least 20 ETH to be able to complete this transaction and validate this transaction. And when it does, it will share this particular transaction with a random set of additional validators to confirm that the transaction is valid. And if those randomly selected validators come to consensus that there is sufficient value available in the payer chain, then they sign the transaction is validated, and then upon completion of that, the next block in that payer chain must have the same hash from the previous block as it submitted in its transaction request, in its value transfer request, or again, the transaction is rejected and the payer who's attempting to do that may be subject to slashing. So this prevents double spend, but importantly, by pushing the responsibility of validating the availability of funds, so to speak, to the paying chain, it enables massive parallel spend processing, all with the immutability of blockchain. So no constraints on that single monolithic central chain. Payment is pushed out to individual paying chains, and novel mechanisms are in place to prevent double spend from happening. And this is possible because of the fact that these are each independent chains who are attempting to make this payment. So what about receiving chains? The great thing about this design is that if you're a receiving chain, you're not locked. You can receive payment without locking your chain. This enables the massive payment transactions that are required for example, e-commerce, global payments, the entire payment infrastructure. If you're not locked, there can be these as a receiver. If you're a big website that receives a bunch of e-commerce, you can receive all sorts of parallel payments without locking your chain or chains. So on the privacy side, another important aspect of this particular payment validation in IronWeave, this novel approach, is that validators are chosen at random, and that collection of validators that reconcile your particular transaction only have to go as far back in your blocks to ensure that this particular transaction can be completed. They don't have insight into your entire payment chain. So it ensures, just like with any other interaction in IronWeave, that the validators only have access enough to validate the spend. The payment itself is only between you and the recipient and not out on some ether scheme. So you have a very private, a very secure, randomly validated but robustly validated transaction that can happen massively and in parallel in the overall IronWeave fabric without the worry of double spend.